Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. I'm flying solo this week, but Coach Don and I will be back together next week. The topic today that we're going to get into is how to help our base runners when we're on offense handle the situation of defensive players getting in their way and obstructing their opportunities to run. Before we get into that topic, though, let's talk about patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. If you're in a position where you can help us, if you see value in what we're doing, we would love for you to come on board. We have a brand new patron this week, Aaron Quillen. Thank you very much for coming on board. Aaron's our newest patron. We've got a great group of patrons that have been supporting us for a long time, but the reality is we definitely need some new people to come on board. So if you're in a position where you can help us, we really do need the help. So if you can, go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch and join Aaron as the newest patron to help support the podcasts. So this topic came to us from a listener whose team was playing and was really struggling with some situations in a game where the other team was constantly throughout the course of the game, obstructing their base runners, impeding them as they were trying to run the bases. The listener's question almost implies that it was a strategy that the team was using on purpose, but now we're also talking about 10 and under softball, so whether it was on purpose or not, I guess it's really hard to say for sure, but job number one for us as coaches is to make sure that our players know what the rules are and what the difference is between obstruction and interference. And so that they understand, again, at that age group, I don't think they necessarily need to be able to recite the rule and understand what the rule book means, but we can help them very clearly understand what their obligations are. So if a fielder is in the base path making a play on the ball, so let's say the kid's running from first to second and the second baseman is directly in the baseline, fielding a ground ball or catching a pop-up, the fielder has the right-of-way in that situation. So the base runner has to avoid a fielder who's in the process of making the play. Any other time, if that fielder is not in the process of making the play, it's just a good rule of thumb to let our base runners know that that fielder cannot stop them, cannot slow them down. Now, I know it sounds kind of hardcore, but one of the most fundamental things that I would be teaching my base runners to do is if that defense is consistently setting up in the base path, to make sure that it's obvious to everybody in the park, the umpires, the fans, the other team, the other coaches, that that base runner is running into her, making it obvious. Now, obviously, we'd like it to not be some sort of super aggressive, malicious kind of thing where we end up with bodies flying all over the field and somebody potentially getting hurt. But running into her, making it obvious, making sure that everybody can see that that base runner is being obstructed and that the fielder's someplace that she's just not supposed to be in that situation. Now, I know that sounds a little harsh, especially when we're talking about 10-year-olds, but I think sometimes some of these harsh, hardcore kinds of lessons, if we teach them when they're 10, we don't have to worry about them later on. And so that's the first thing that I would tell our listener, to make sure that your players understand the rule of when they have the right to the base path and when they have to avoid the fielder, and then helping them understand that the best way to stop a team from obstructing them, from impeding their ability to run the bases, is to make it so obvious to the umpires that the umpires have to fix it. Now, you can try being, a good person as a coach and just mention something to the other coach, try saying something. In this situation, because our coach thought it was their strategy, that they were doing it on purpose, I don't know that calling the other coach out on it's going to solve it. So I think we have to count on the umpires to get involved and be the people to help sort it out. Now, again, I don't want to see kids out there, body slamming each other and purposely trying to T-bone each other. But I also think that sometimes the only thing we can do is make it really obvious that that defensive player is someplace that they're really not supposed to be. The trick to this is, especially with younger players, is helping them understand and see the possibilities of what could be happening before it happens. So running in the bases in practice more, helping our players set up these specific situations. If you want your base runners to be good at understanding this rule, let's practice base running enough. Let's practice base running enough in situations where a player might actually be fielding a ball in the base path or might not be. You could set it up with just a second baseman and a shortstop and no other kids on the field. And, hitting ground balls after your base runners take that lead off at first base so they can see the ball being hit. They see somebody moving into a position to field it, and they know for sure that that's the telltale sign that that player's in the base path making a play on the ball. So now I need to avoid them. We can do the same thing and have, that runner running from first to second hit a ground ball to the shortstop, so the second baseman has no reason to be blocking the base. And one, we can help our defensive players understand their obligations to give the base runner room to run, but it also gives our base runners chances to see the play developing, see where the fielders are going, anticipate from that what their options are. The most important thing is helping the kids understand the rules and then making whatever kinds of strategic adjustments we need to get the problem solved. And again, in this situation, because the opposing team might have been doing it as a strategic thing to get an advantage to slow base runners down and to keep kids from taking extra bases and things like that, then I think your only solution is to make it clear to everybody in the park, this defensive player is blocking the base, she's blocking the baseline, she's keeping me from going where I need to go when she's nowhere in proximity of the ball, not in any way, shape, or form making a play. To me, I think that's the best way to handle it. And again, you can try taking the high road, talk to the other coach. Again, depending upon the situation, if we're talking 10 and under rec ball and the kids clearly are just learning how to play and are making honest mistakes, that's one thing. And again, if it's playing 10 and under travel ball against your number one rival, and you've played them 4 or 5 times and you've seen them do the same thing in 4 or 5 different games, then that might be a different situation altogether. But again, the best way in my mind is to make it obvious that the defense is creating obstruction, let the umpire make that call and sort it out. If the umpire doesn't make that call, at least you're doing everything you can to make the situation as clear as possible. We don't want to train our base runners to be dodging fielders as they're running the bases if those fielders are not making a play, because it's going to create all kinds of problems with them, getting from base to base, or even more importantly, maybe scoring from second on a base hit or going first to third. Hopefully that helps. If you have questions, comments, ideas, suggestions for topics, we would love to hear from you. Please make sure you reach out to us at fastpitchprep@gmail.com or everythingfastpitch@gmail.com. Either email address will work. We would certainly love to talk about stuff happening in your world, things that are happening with your teams, and the best way for that to happen is for you to reach out with those emails. Also, we would love for you to make Player of the Week nominations for the Everything Fast Pitch podcast. So if you have a player that's doing something special, again, same email addresses. Once you do, just a few things, a couple of sentences about what that player has accomplished and why you want to be recognized. You can also go to the fastpitchprep.com website, order your Square Cuts training discs there. You also have access to the YouTube channel and the blog posts. There's a ton of information available on our website, again, fastpitchprep.com. So for Coach Don McKinley and our producer, Stan Lewis, this is Coach Torrey. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.